Hey guys, what is up? It's me Jelus once again and welcome back to my YouTube channel. So in today's Photoshop tutorial, I'm gonna teach you how to create this photo manipulation that I call the Great Adventure. And these are going to be the stock images we're going to use, and I'm also gonna put the links in the description down below. So without further ado, let's get creative. Okay, so first of course, in creating our photo manipulation, let's create a new document. So let's head over to File, let's click on New, and for this one I'm going to use a 4:5 ratio, so 4000 pixels for the width and 5000 pixels for the height, and I'm going to use 72 resolution for this one. And if you want to print your output, you can change this one to 300 and then just click Create. Okay, so now we have a new canvas here, and now it's time to drag the images that we're going to use. Okay, so in my photo manipulation, I really want to start with my subject, so this is going to be our subject on this time. In my photo manipulation workflow, I start with my subject and I use that subject as an inspiration for the background that I will be creating. So okay, so this is going to be our subject over here. So this is a cyclist, and I'm gonna flip this one horizontally, so just press Ctrl T, right click and flip this one horizontally, and just click on the move tool over here. So we're going to select our subject, so let's head over to select and choose subject over here, and Photoshop is going to automatically create a selection in our subject. And in case you don't have this feature over here, you can always rely or use on the pen tool over here and create that manual selection. Okay, so now that we have our subject over here, let's head over to select and choose select and mask. Okay, and it's gonna bring you over here, so I think I'm satisfied with the result, and let's click on OK. So over here, let's create a layer mask, and as you can see, we do need some of the grasses below our cyclist feet, so we need to bring those back by using a brush tool. So just press B and just click on this one to switch between the foreground and background color, or just press X. So whenever in a layer mask, you can use a white foreground to paint back those details, and use black foreground to erase those details whenever in a layer mask. So for this one, let's just make a soft grass on this part over here. So just make sure to lower your flow so that you can have a smoother effect. Let's double click and rename this one to let's just rename this one to man, and let's resize this one. Okay, I think something like this will do. Okay, and we're gonna put this one over here, and we're gonna drag the second subject, which is going to be used as the ground. So we're going to use this one over here, and let's make this one bigger. So now let's press L to select the lasso tool, or just click over here and select lasso tool, and let's create a selection on this grass part over here. So okay, so let's just drag the arrow and create a path around here. Okay, so just try to make your selection inside that grass part so that you can fix it by using select and select and mask. And then over here, let's use the refine edge brush tool and just refine those edges so that it reveals more of that grassy part, or the grassy edge of this image, just like this. There you go. And see, there are some missing parts over here. We can always use a brush tool and just paint those over so that we can have those tiny details just like this. Okay, so if you are satisfied, just simply press OK over here, and then let's create a layer mask by clicking this icon once again. So we're going to be putting this one behind our subject. Just make this one bigger. There you go. And as you can see, our grass part over here of our subject smoothly blends with the ground that we just used. So maybe erase some parts here, so use a brush tool and a black foreground, and just erase these tiny details over here just to make it blend more to the background. And we want to bring back those shadows, so just paint back this shadow part over here by using a white foreground. Just rename this one first to ground so that we can't get confused after all the images are being put over here. So the next one we're gonna add is some rocks for this framing, or some additional depth to the photo manipulation. So we're actually going to use this one over here. Just make this one bigger. Okay, so we're gonna use the rock part. So the same thing, we're going to select the lasso tool, just press L and just create a selection over here. And then let's head over to select and mask once again. And just do the same thing. Use our refine edge brush tool and just refine these edges once again. There you go, and then just press OK. Now we can create a layer mask, and let's flip this one horizontally. Make this one slightly bigger. And we're gonna put the man behind this rock over here, so let's make this one smaller. And let's paint back some of those lost details over here. So let's increase the flow. And if you want to erase, just use a black foreground. Okay, so we're gonna add another framing on this side over here. So let's just rename this one first to rock, and let's drag the next image, which is going to be this one. Okay, so now we can use a lasso tool or just use a quick selection tool over here, and then just create a selection around this rock part. There you go, and then we can press Ctrl J on this one, right click and convert this one to a smart object so that we can preserve the details. And I want to warp this image over here, that's why I converted it to a smart object. So we're going to use it on this side over here. So flip this horizontally and hold the Control key to drag one point of the transform button. And I think I'm gonna put this one somewhere over here just for some additional framing. And let's press Ctrl T once again and use a warp tool and just drag this bottom part over here. So this is somewhat like a pathway. So there you go. And to blend our rock image over here, let's use a brush. So I'm also gonna put the links in the description down below on this grass Photoshop brush. So I'm gonna use number 2 on this one. Let's create a layer mask, and I think 61% will do. And remember to use a black foreground whenever you want to erase something in a layer mask. So just erase this part over here to make it blend. Okay, so I think this one will do. Okay, so the next thing we're gonna add is of course the backgrounds. So let's rename this one to side rock. Okay, that will do. Just be creative on your naming so that you don't get confused by all the images put together. So the next thing we're gonna add is some mountains. So first one over here. So the same thing, let's use a lasso tool and let's just create a selection somewhere on this area over here. Okay, so just try to get inside to this mountain part and just create a selection. There you go. And now let's head over to select and mask and refine the edges once again. Okay, so I think we're going to be using the same technique for the remaining images. So I think I'm going to time lapse on this one. So enjoy the process. Okay, so this is now the placement of all the images that we use in our photo manipulation. So we have our back mountain over here and two side mountains, and we have some hill over in this area, our subject, our framings, and of course the ground. Okay, so now it's time to fix some of those missing parts in all our images and erase those messy edges. So let's start over on this mountain over here. Let's head over to the layer mask. Let's use a brush tool with a white foreground, and we're gonna use a hard round brush for this one and just paint on those details that were lost, just like this. And to erase these messy edges, we're going to use a black foreground and just erase just like this. And I'm going to time lapse on this one because we're gonna be doing the same thing for all the other images. Okay, so after that, now it's time to blend all our images and create a better and realistic composite. So I'm just gonna start with our subject over here. So since our light source is over in this area, then this part of our subject should be darker. So let's click on this image. Let's head over to adjustment layer icon. Let's choose levels. Let's create a clipping mask and let's drag this one to make it darker. Okay, so I think 110 will do. And since we have some lights over here, then we need to erase this part over here to give it some highlights. So just press B for the brush tool, and we're going to use a soft round brush to create a smoother effect, and just lower the flow to about 16% and use a black foreground whenever in a layer mask and just erase these parts over here to give it some highlights. And since it has a bright orange tone to it, we need to add some color balance. So let's head over here. Let's add a color balance adjustment layer. Let's create a clipping mask and let's drag the yellow to the left side and drag the red to the right side. Okay, so I think that one will do, and we actually don't need this part over here, so we're going to erase that one with a black foreground. There you go. And let's darken our ground over here. So let's just group this first. So let's select our man image over here. Then just hold the shift key and select the uppermost adjustment layer. And it's also gonna select the layer in between. Press Ctrl G and just rename this one once again to man. So let's head over to our ground layer and let's darken this one. Let's create a clipping mask and just drag this one all the way to 110. Okay, so I think that one will do. And let's just do the same thing. Let's group this one and let's rename this to ground. This one over here for our rock, we need to add some blur effect on this one since it is much closer to our perspective. So let's head over to filter, blur, and add a Gaussian blur of about 20 pixels and then just press OK. And we don't want these hard edges over here, so let's go to the layer mask, use a brush tool, and just use a soft round brush and just erase these hard edges over here just like this. And now let's add a level adjustment layer. Let's create a clipping mask and let's make this one darker. And let's erase some of these parts here to give it some highlights. And let's do the same thing for our side rock over here. Let's just group this one first. Let's add a levels adjustment layer. And let's make this one darker. 110 will do. And we need to add some highlights also on this part, reflecting those highlights on the light source. So let's use a brush tool once again and a black foreground and just erase this darkness over here. And we also need to add some color balance into this one. So let's give this one an orange tone, just like this. There you go. I think that one will do. Let's make this part here darker. Okay, and let's head over to our ground layer and let's just erase some of those darkness over here. There you go. And just maybe decrease the overall darkness. Also the same thing for our subject. I think it's too dark. So I think 124 will do for this one. And just experiment with all the settings until you're satisfied with the result. So over here, let's do the same thing for our hills. So let's darken this one. Let's add a levels adjustment layer. Okay, so I think 95 will do for this one, or 96 will do. And we need to erase this part over here since our light source is going to brighten up this area over here. We just a black foreground, just erase this part over here. And then let's add a color balance into this one. Let's create a clipping mask and let's add a yellow and some reds. Okay, so I think that one will do. And let's create a clipping mask over here. So just hold the Alt key and click in between to create a clipping mask. And we actually don't need this color balance or this orange tone over here. So just erase this part. There you go. I think I'm gonna darken this ground over here. I think 125 will do. Also for the rocks. And let's do the same thing for our side framing. Let's just bring back some of those darkness. There you go. And for this first mountain over here, this needs to be a lot darker since it is behind the light source. So let's head over to adjustment layer icon once again. Let's add levels. Let's create the clipping mask. And let's drag this one. Okay, so I think 80 will do for this one. And then just to give it a faded look, so let's click on this mountain over here. Below the mountain image, let's add a new layer. Then let's hold the control key and select this layer mask. And it's going to create that selection. Let's use a brush tool with a white foreground. And then let's just paint over and let's create a solid background for this mountain part over here. So as you can see, we're just painting a solid white for its background. And now what we're gonna do is we're going to decrease the opacity of this mountain over here. So let's just press Ctrl D to deselect. And let's lower the opacity to about 90% to make or to give it a faded effect. And let's just make this one darker. There you go. So I think 25 will do. And let's also make our hills here darker. There you go. Okay, and for the next one over here, should be a bit of orange. So let's add a color balance into this one. Let's create a clipping mask and drag the yellow to the left side and give it some reds. Okay, so I think that one will do. And this part here should be a lot darker. So let's add a levels adjustment layer. Let's make this one darker. Press Ctrl I to invert the layer mask. Let's use a brush tool. And let's make this side here darker. And this one here should be a whole lot faded. So let's click on this mountain image. And then we're just gonna do the same thing for what we did with this mountain over here. So let's select the sky background. Let's create a new layer just below this mountain image. Hold the Control key and select on the layer mask over here to create that selection. Let's use a brush tool. This time we're going to sample this color over here. So just hold the Alt key and click on this part to sample that color, and it's going to change the foreground color into that color. And we're just going to simply paint on that color over here. Press Ctrl D to deselect. And then let's just lower the opacity of our mountain image. Okay, so I think 80% will do. And let's erase some of this part over here. So let's use a black foreground. And let's just softly erase this part over here to make it blend more to the sky background. There you go. And I think we need to add some more orange to this one. So the color balance adjustment layer. And also to this side. So let's head over to the color balance. Let's add some more reds and some more orange. There you go. Okay, so I think this part here is a bit darker, so let's just decrease the overall darkness. Okay, so I think that one will do. And let's add some more highlights to our subject over here. So let's select on the levels. Let's use a brush tool and a black foreground. Let's just erase some of those darkness on this area over here. And let's add that color balance back. Give it an orange tone. Okay, so I think that one will do. And we're just going to decrease the overall brightness in this area here, since it's not really that close to the light source. So let's use a brush tool with a black foreground. I mean with the white foreground, and let's just lower the flow to about 8%. And let's just add those darkness back. Okay, so I think that one will do. And for the rock over here, let's add a color balance into it once again. Just a bit of orange will do for this one. Okay, so I think that one will do. Okay, so now it's time to add some haze effect. Let's go over here to the ground image. There you go. And just below the ground group, so let's select over here. Let's create a new layer. Let's use a brush tool. And let's use a lighter gray for this one. Let's press on OK. And we're going to softly add some haze effect down here, just to separate our main ground to the hills down there. And also to the hills above here, or below our hills layer. So let's click on this levels adjustment. Let's create a new layer. Let's use a white foreground and let's just do the same thing. Let's add some atmospheric haze. There you go. I think that one will do. Okay, so now let's head over to our uppermost layer and let's add our final image, which is going to be the birds. And we're going to put this one somewhere on this area over here. Okay, so I think our mountain image is just a bit too dark, so I think 28 will do for this one. And let's also add some color balance to this back mountain over here, and let's make this one orangey, and let's add some reds, add some more yellows. Okay, so I think that one will do perfectly. And just maybe decrease the overall opacity to about 70% or maybe 75%. Okay, so the steps that I showed you right now might complicate you in some way, but basically it's just looking up those details and just finding the right tone and the right shadow and brightness to make the overall photo manipulation a whole lot better and realistic. Okay, so now let's just make this rock bigger over here. So let's select the rock group, then let's press on Ctrl T just to give it a more depth, and just hide this part over here of the bike. I think something like this will do. And then just press on the move tool to confirm the transformation. And to finish up our photo manipulation, of course, we have our camera raw filter. So let's click on the uppermost layer, let's hold the Ctrl Alt Shift E, and then right click and convert it to a smart object. Then let's head over to filter and choose camera raw filter. So over here in these settings, you can adjust any thing you want. There's basically no right or wrong here. It's basically just based on your preference. So over here in the basic, you can add some texture into it and maybe give it some clarity of 5. So if you want, and just try to experiment on which settings will best suit your photo manipulation. So I can make this one darker, so I think -25 will do, and for the whites we'll make this one a bit brighter, so 40 will do. And for the shadows, I think it's just really too dark, so let's bring up the shadows a bit. So I think 20 will do for this one. And then for the highlights, let's give it a 30. And for the exposure, I think I'm gonna give it a 5 just to make it a brighter a little bit. For the detail, I'm gonna give it a sharpening of about 40 and a noise reduction of about 20 and a color noise reduction of 30 just to reduce those noise in those solid colored parts. And in the color grading, I'm gonna give it a orangey tone. So I'm just gonna move this slider here to the orange part. There you go. And you can also play around with the blending if you want to make your photo manipulation blend more to the orange tone. So I think I'm just gonna leave it to 60 over here. And just play around with all the settings here, and whenever you're satisfied, just press on OK. And to make your images blend more, you can also add another filter. So let's head over to adjustment layer icon and let's choose color lookup. Let's create a clipping mask, and from the list of settings over here, just select the right filter that will best suit your photo manipulation. So I think I'm gonna go with Kodak 518 for this one, just to give it that cinematic effect. And we are finally done with our Photoshop photo manipulation tutorial for today. So I hope you have learned something from this tutorial, and if you do, just don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to my YouTube channel and click that bell icon to get notified whenever I upload a new content. Thank you so much for watching, and see you on my next video.